It's that time of year. The air is getting cooler, the days grow shorter, and the leaves turn their vibrant hues of oranges, yellows, and reds. Fall. And what better place to experience the season than the states of New England? Today we share our local tips on where and when you should go, and what our favorite must-plan activities are for your fall adventures.
Welcome to the Travel More Podcast.
Each episode, we share custom itineraries, travel hacks, expert advice, and even stories of our past travel failures to help you level up your travel game.
I'm Shelly, a lover of plans, itineraries, and cheap flights. I'm an expert deal finder with one eye always on the budget.
And I'm Bruce, the improviser, ready to pick up where plans fail to turn letdowns into unexpected trip favorites. We're here to bust through barriers that stop you from making your travel dreams a reality.
So book that flight, buy the tickets, and say hello to your next adventure.
This is the Travel More Podcast. Welcome back to the Travel More Podcast.
The real Travel More Podcast.
No
I guess
more summer school.
Now that the last one wasn't real.
That was the fake one.
Yeah.
That wasn't us. Yeah.
No, but I'm excited to get back to like these types of episodes. Not that there's like a ton difference, I guess, between the two, but the other ones were just more focused on like skills or
How-tos
like tools.
a bit. Yeah. Kind of breaking things down. Like
Yeah. Even though this is literally how to plan an itinerary. So we're
Yeah,
still
today
in
is a
how-tos, I guess. But this one is a little more
relax.
Yeah, there you go. Relax. I like that. So we have to talk about this right now because we are officially entering fall season. Pumpkin spice lattes are in Starbucks. That to me is like the signal of like you're allowed to celebrate fall.
And I had my first apple cider donut yesterday.
We did.
So
We did have our
yes,
first apple cider donut.
It's fall.
But if you're not a New Englander, honestly, the trip out here is worth that alone.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're the best.
Yeah, I mean, can we just agree that if you're going to bother to see the fall and fall foliage and everything, that New England wins?
Oh,
Come
yeah.
on. Like,
Yeah, I don't know that. Does anyone argue that?
I don't know if people do. I'm not saying there aren't places out there that have nice leaves.
I've heard Canada's really nice.
Oh, I
like
bet.
Central Canada, I think.
Like, where's
like
that?
Toronto, like
Toronto?
Central South.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure. And I'm like, it just, I don't know. There's something about New England in fall and
Yeah.
like farm stands and apple orchards.
You know, and I really think that is what it is. It's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I mean, like colors I didn't even know existed in the fall, but I also think that it is like a certain vibe.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not just the colors. It's the fact that like New England essentially should always be in the fall because like that is the
It's when
vibe
it
of the
shines.
place. It's like the joke about how everybody watched Gilmore Girls in the fall, but Gilmore Girls doesn't just take place in the fall. It's just the fact that it's in Connecticut.
There's something culturally about
Yeah.
New England and its colonial towns.
Yeah, it just feels very cozy.
It is.
Always.
Super cozy.
Yeah, even
But
when
it's-
it's super hot outside, you're like, man, this is freaking cozy. Like, it just is. I don't know what to say. And I'm not even from here. So this is an outsider's point of view. It's literally the reason I decided to stay, I think, is because kind of how cozy and cute the towns are here. And because we have great seasons. We have all the seasons. And
That's
we feel
true.
them a lot.
I think that's my favorite part about this region is that each season feels distinct.
Yeah.
I always think like when you're in kindergarten and they have like
Like,
seasonal calendars and like pictures that are like it's spring, there's flowers and rabbits. It's like
That is literally...
yeah, like
That's actually really
April.
funny you mentioned rabbits because I remember being in Cape Cod because that's my first touch of New England.
What was your first time leaving the? Well, no, you
No,
left.
it is pretty
It's
much.
kind of like your first venture outside of your own hometown.
Yeah, I had been to New York once on a trip, but but like even New York. Well, New York's not New England, first of all, and second of all, like it's a very different thing. It's
Right.
almost like you could be anywhere, but it's like New York. So Cape Cod was definitely my first like I'm venturing into New England, and I remember like texting my dad because I was like, they have rabbits just wandering here. Like, what an idyllic place that rabbits just go everywhere. Now it's funny to me because we see them all the time.
Yeah.
But coming from the South, like, we don't have like, I don't ever seen a rabbit just
existing?
Yeah, just like on the
In
field.
the idyllic meadow.
Like eating its grass. Like, what is that? That's like a fairy tale. That's literally what I felt like when I came to New England. Like, it's a fairy tale. So that's what it is in the fall. It's a fall fairy tale.
So today we're gonna break this down, describing our like ideal New England fall adventure. right? And we're thinking probably like a road trip.
Yeah,
For like a weekend, a
you
long
gotta have
weekend.
a car.
Yeah, so this is going to be one of those like road trip kind of itineraries and how can you experience this the best. We're going to break it down by where is the best place in New England to go for the fall, and then when should you go, and what you might want to do. And I'm adding another one here is what do you want to eat too? Because I think we need a fourth one about food and drinks.
We already mentioned cider donuts.
I'm like, listen, that's my category. So you can listen to Shelly, and then I'll talk about food and drink. But so anyway, this is going to be one of those episodes I think where people might come back at us and argue their own points. Cause
that's always, this is such a like dividing topic. Like it's almost like we're sitting on here telling you where the best barbecue is.
Yeah, right.
Like, people really have their opinions on this.
Yeah, and we're not going to sit here and say like, well, I'll tell you what my favorite is. Like Shelly might have a different favorite, but we're going to try to highlight the different states.
Yeah, and like what, like for me, I keep using this word vibe, but I feel like it fits this episode where it's like the states have different vibes.
For sure. I would say they're actually pretty distinct.
Yes, that's what I mean. And so like depending on what you want to do, your like state that you're going to go to is going to be different. So like we have a favorite. I think ours is the same.
I think so.
But we have a favorite because we like, that's what we want to do. Like are all the things that are in this state. But you may be sitting there going, but I don't want to do that. I want to do this. And then your favorite will probably be this other state. So we're really going to try and not be biased towards our favorite and instead kind of give you an overview of why you might choose each state. So
we'll break each one down. And, you know, I really think we just help somebody else kind of come up with an idea for this who's never been to New England. So for people who live in New England, you know, listen along, take notes, send us your criticisms later. For people who live in a place where they've not had a chance to go experience the fall, this is mostly for you.
Yeah, it's a good place to start.
Right, it's a good place to think. So let's see, Shelly's got New Hampshire down first.
Yeah, well, I think that that's what a lot of people think of when they think of fall foliage, and I cannot say this highway. Do you know what it is?
Oh, Kankamagus.
Nice. See, that's when you know someone who's not
Shelly's
from New England.
I think I
said
it right. Listen, I think I said it right because the end of the AT is what's the mountain? I just remembered.
Katahdin.
Yeah, I called it Katahdin as a kid because it sounds awesome. And I'll still call it that.
And our friend, we were like talking about it. My friend was like,
"What did you say?
Excuse me? What? What did you just say?" And he's like, "I actually like that better, but that's not the name of the mountain."
It's Katahdin.
Yeah.
So
that's in Maine. We're getting a little confusing. Yes, but yes.
So
the highway.
Right, and I think New Hampshire is cool. They actually their state like tourism website has a foliage tracker and really great, like a lot of tourism around fall foliage.
Yeah, we're going to get back to that foliage tracker in a minute when we talk about when you should go, because that is something to be talked about.
Right, but like an overview of the state.
Yeah, so people say the highway is the best fall foliage in the world.
I would say they're not wrong, because Shelly and I did it, if you remember, when we went to Bates.
Yeah, Maine. Yeah, we did. I mean, it's amazing. But my only thing with that, and this is what I told the woman I was helping with too, is that centering yourself in New Hampshire, you're probably going to do a lot of driving.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Because that is what that's how you're going to see the foliage. I feel like the towns aren't mostly as big. I don't want to like offend people here, but I feel like the towns don't have as much going on in them. Like they're smaller.
If you were looking to do something
country store,
if you were trying to have more of a experience in a city, then New Hampshire is probably not the spot. But if you don't mind driving, seeing
very small towns, like nothing,
or even going to like small ski resorts that you might stay at, that there's probably not going to be a ton of people there. Maybe it depends.
Yeah, I mean, you could take we can get to this when what you should do, but they may have a restaurant at the ski resort and another one 15 miles down the road. Like we're talking like that small.
Yeah, so it's still going to be beautiful.
Oh, all of these are going to be amazingly beautiful. It's just, what do you want to do when you're there? That might be determined like where you want to go.
But definitely if you want to see the mountains, you can't beat like Mount Washington.
Well, yeah, the White Mountains.
Beautiful. Mountains and some of the drives and hiking in Lake Winnipesaukee. There's another
You're going to do all the pronunciations today.
So New Hampshire's got all that covered. Yeah. Right? Really nice.
So that's New Hampshire.
All right, let's talk about Vermont.
Do you want to give away Vermont all the way at the top?
Should we wait for Vermont?
No, let's just talk about Vermont. This is clearly our favorite.
Well, I mean, we lived in Vermont. I definitely am biased towards it.
Yeah, I mean, we lived there, so Vermont's we know it very well.
Yeah, it's also going to have lakes. I think New Hampshire's got a little bit more of a lake area with Winnipesaukee. You have Lake Champlain, and you have views of the Adirondacks there. You have Burlington, Vermont, which is super popular and is going to give you a lot more,
things to do.
Yeah, things to do if you wanted to go there and do things at night, and more restaurants and bars and things. And it's a big college town.
Yeah, so I mean, big is relative, but compared to some of these, for me, if I was just going to send somebody without doing too much talking to them, or after talking to them quite a bit, I'd almost always send people to Vermont, I think. But I really think that it's because, to me, it has kind of the best of both worlds. First of all, the maple trees in Vermont are like bright red.
That's a big difference.
Bright red.
I would say that the colors of Vermont are different than other places because of their maple
trees. Yeah, and so you get like the beautiful colors, and then you also have Burlington or Montpelier or Stowe. Like, there's quite a few towns that are a bit bigger than other ones, like in New Hampshire and Maine, and you can kind of get both. Like, you can like go out to places that are more rural, like farmlands or the mountains, and then you can come back and have like a farm to table dinner, or even like kind of a Michelin star style at like Hen of the Wood, where it's like really fancy little plates. So you can do like the whole thing. You can get the whole experience. You don't have to choose, which is why I like Vermont.
I think so. I think if you base yourself in Burlington, you can, within an hour, have a lot of different experiences. And it's not to say that you can't have aspects of that, because
of course,
I just think there's something about, I don't know, I love it. Because you could go to like Keene. I'm sure Keene is a little bit bigger in New Hampshire and those areas, but it's not like you'd be driving pretty far then to go check out Mount Washington, for instance. So,
right. And like Burlington to Stowe, like Mount Mansfield, is like 45 minutes, an hour?
45 minutes, an hour, depending on how
the
you're
traffic
going
and all
and
that.
if there's any.
Yeah. So it's still, it's an easy drive. Like, if you're just like going to go out and kind of take that in and stuff like that. So Vermont is our favorite.
And you might get lucky with the airport. Like, it might be more expensive, but they do have a pretty decent airport in Burlington.
Yeah, right.
What's next?
Maine. This one snuck up on Bruce. Like, he didn't even have it on the list.
Honestly, I think it's just because Maine's kind of out there. I mean, I grew up in Connecticut. We live there now, and we usually will go up to Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont before we go all the way to Maine. But I will say, if you are into straight up nature,
outdoorsy nature camping, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Acadia in the fall, it might be one of the top places to see.
Yeah, but it's far. I mean, from us in Connecticut, everything is very close to New England. So like, to get to Burlington's like 3.5, 4 hours, and that's the top of Vermont. To get to Portland, Maine, it's probably like 3.5 hours
from here.
Yeah.
No, I think it's going to be closer to 5.
No.
Yeah, Portland, Maine.
You know what?
Go past Boston.
You know what? Yeah, because I'm thinking from Burlington. But it doesn't matter. The point is, things are usually very close in New England. So to think Acadia is an 8-hour drive from us, 8 or 9 hours.
Yeah, about.
That's far. Like,
it is.
We can get like good amount down the East Coast in 8 or 9 hours. So it just feels like out of reach for us a little bit. It always
is like a bit further because everything else kind of feels compact.
Right,
so
that's what I mean.
If you had a week, you could start in Boston, go to New Hampshire, Vermont, go down back to Massachusetts, and go east, and cover like all of that.
A big ground, yeah.
And not feel like you had to go very long without a cool stop.
Right.
And getting
to get to Acadia, like, you'd have to fly into Maine, like Portland probably,
or Boston and drive, but that's still a lot.
Well, that's a really long drive.
It depends. If money's not a concern, you could charter planes and you could fly.
Charter planes. My goodness.
I don't mean charter. Let's not say charter. all right. I just mean you can fly. You could maybe pay the expense to fly into smaller airports.
Yeah.
But either way, I think Maine can also be really cool.
Well, it's just very rural. I mean, for the most part, there are definitely big cities, or there's a big city. And
I mean, you got Maine. Bangor and Portland, and they're on the coast, so you have really cool coastal areas. You have Acadia as a national park.
That's where I think if you're gonna go to Maine, you might as well just go all out.
Yeah, if you're coming from out of the region and you're not going to Acadia when you go to Maine, I don't know why you're going.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a good point.
So anyway, I would definitely put it on your list.
Maine is the outdoorsy one.
Yeah, outdoorsy, and you want the coast. That would be awesome.
I mean, we should probably mention that Connecticut is a New England state. However, I'm not sure I would suggest going to Connecticut for your New England fall itinerary.
Now, that's not to say like the northwest and northeastern parts of Connecticut can be very pretty. But they're it's like diet New England. I'm sorry, I'm from here. I can speak ill of it. It's my turn. Listen. Connecticut's fine. I grew up here. There's a lot of things to love, but it does feel like it's the smaller version of the better version. Like the better version of things are in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, and etc.
Massachusetts. Yeah, so that's what I was going to say is I don't think, and I'm like really trying to rack my brain right now, but I don't think there's really much in Connecticut that you couldn't find somewhere else better.
Yes, unless for some reason you're specifically wanting to see like Mystic Seaport.
It's very cute.
New Haven Pizza.
Yeah, I mean, and like Yale's there, right? So like,
there's reasons you would come down, but it's probably because you're wanting to see more than just foliage.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not like, my breath is not taken away by the foliage in Connecticut. Like I'm driving to work and I'm like, oh, it's nice, but it's not like when we were in Vermont or when we drove to Maine. Like that was like literally take your breath away, cotton candy type trees. Like it was wild.
I will take later when we break it down on when you should go. Connecticut will come up for another reason, but we'll wait.
Okay, and so our last piece then is Rhode Island, but again, I'm not sure why you'd go to Rhode Island for the foliage.
I think Rhode Island, again, if you really wanted to have a coastal experience and you don't want to go all the way to Maine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Coastal and fall foliage don't quite go
That's
hand
true.
in hand.
You usually want to be in the. That's why I would say the New Hampshire and Vermont are so popular because it's mountains and trees and you can hike and see these massive vistas.
They have the vibes.
Right, they've got the cool vibes.
So, anyways, Rhode Island, cool state, but I'm not sure that that's where you'd go for fall foliage.
Maybe not.
So then Massachusetts is our last one. And Massachusetts, obviously, Boston is what most people think about for Massachusetts. And it's kind of what I would think about too, in terms of fall. So you're going to get tons of city life experience. The fall foliage is beautiful in Massachusetts, but to get to like the mountains, you're probably looking at the Berkshires, which is a pretty decent drive. Like it's not necessarily down the street.
It would be better. So like what doesn't make sense about it is why would you drive to the Berkshires when you can just go to New Hampshire in the same time?
Yeah, so exactly. So this is the same like Connecticut problem where it's like it's not that they're not beautiful, but why would you do that when you could go to like the one from the same distance?
So that kind of brings us to say most people are probably going to fly into Boston because it's the cheapest.
Right.
Because if you fly into Hartford or into Burlington or Portland or even like New Hampshire, you're going to pay a lot more.
Hartford, sometimes you get deals.
So Hartford, sometimes you get deals, and then you can drive right up 91 and go straight up into Massachusetts, New Hampshire, etc. very quickly.
I mean, so just what do I say? Full disclosure, Bruce and I also got married in Vermont in the fall, like in the fall foliage. Yeah, we're super biased. But I will say, the reason I'm bringing this up is because we had quite a few family members of mine who had to fly into Hartford and then drive up.
Yeah, so I would say Boston and Hartford are first to look at. Burlington is
going to be more expensive.
Because it's smaller.
Yeah.
You could fly to Montreal.
Yes, you could. Down. It's actually not that hard. So that would be another one.
And that, depending, who knows?
But you do have to have a passport. So, I mean, I assume people know that, but just so you know. Yeah.
If you're coming from Canada, you have a passport. It gets a little more complicated. You got to go through customs. But
it's not very far.
No.
So it would be an easy thing to do.
Laying out the map for people who are not as familiar, there's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah.
But I would say that Boston is probably going to be your more common one.
Yeah, it's going to be the cheapest for sure.
Which makes us lean into the New Hampshire drive and maybe Vermont as part of like the most popular areas to get to.
Yeah.
Mostly because you're going to be flying into Boston.
Right. If you fly into Boston, you're going to be driving quite a bit more than if you could fly into Burlington.
And if you're okay with that and you have the time and you want to drive.
The time is the biggest one, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure if you're going for a weekend.
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I would really try to go to Burlington if you're going to come for a weekend.
I recommend it too. Yeah. I think.
Just because then you're in the heart of it right away. You don't have to drive to the heart of it.
I would pay $200, $300 more on a plane ticket to go right to Burlington so that I could get off, immediately be in a really cool college town on the lake, wake up and have like 20 activities at my disposal that are going to give me incredible fall fun and foliage.
Right, exactly. And
That's why.
Yeah, for the weekend. Like if you have a week, it's a little different. But if you have a weekend, I'm thinking Burlington.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's go on to this one. Won't be as long. We won't just ramble about our favorite places in New England as much.
Wait, can I just say before we do
God.
that, what's very exciting, if you've never heard of the Big E, which is like the Eastern States Exposition, it's like, I'm sure in other regions they have like county fairs, but they're really big, state fairs.
Yeah.
This one's really cool because at the Big E, and it's in Massachusetts, they have a state building for every New England state.
That's modeled off the actual state buildings.
Yes, and they're all in a row next to each other, and they all feature all these things that, you know, each
are
state
local to that state.
Yeah. And when you're in them, you're actually in the state, so you can buy lotto tickets from that state. I love it. It's my thing. But
yes, it is cool.
It's just cool because each one has such a vibe.
Yes, like, I mean, very much.
It's hard to describe. I almost want to challenge listeners to give me like 3 words for each state. And I bet you're going to get a lot of people saying the same things.
Yeah, like if you're from New England or you're very familiar with New England, email us, contact@travelmorepodcast.com, and tell me what your 3 words for each state would be, because now I'm like really curious. Or you can put it in our Facebook community. Either way, I bet you're right though. Like they do have such a...
That should go in the newsletter.
Forward. Oh, I'll put it in there too. We'll just go every place
I'm
you
already
can talk
thinking
to
of mine. I'm like, I got some.
That's what I mean. This would be very interesting to talk about. Okay, so anyways, let us actually now go to when you should go. All
right. So this goes back to that foliage tracker that I was bringing up. So here's my one disclaimer. You can't...
Your one disclaimer is don't actually listen to us.
Yes.
No. You can't really predict is where you're going with that, right?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people who might have some background in certain sciences, you know, around like plants
foliage?
And I guess it's foliage. I don't know if it's specific, but I know I've read people who describe things like the rainfall and the patterns year to year and
like
other
different
things
funguses that may have affecting growth and stuff like that. And
people
they get really intense.
And I think there's aspects to that can be very true, but I don't know. I think it's hard to predict when is peak. And I used to work in hospitality.
Literally in a bed and breakfast in Vermont. So like, y'all, we're definitely biased in Vermont.
But either way, I would say anybody in New England that is in this industry gets asked that question, when should I come to see the best leaves? And you can never answer it because, you know, you never know. But here's my other thing about this. Shelly and I picked, I guess... It wasn't that late because here's the thing.
Are you about to forget our wedding?
No,
anniversary?
I didn't forget our wedding.
Oh my gosh!
No. I was saying we live on it. No. October 7th, 2017.
My goodness.
So no, I was gonna say when we were thinking about it, we were concerned about being like past peak season,
which we technically were.
So that was the one thing. Well, before I say that, I still think the leaves are really awesome past peak. Yeah. So people get concerned about finding this like perfect sweet spot.
It's like 3 days long.
It literally, like when you really think about peak, it kind of like blooms and blows up really like big in a certain way, and then it starts to change pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Some years it feels longer. Other years it really depends. There's been years where certain maple trees will like blow up red on like September 1st, and they lose all their leaves. And none of the other trees change until like the end of September, October. Yeah. So it really depends on a lot of things regionally, the altitude. But in general, when you think about the leaves in New England, the further north is going to go first. Mm-hmm. So if you think you can't get to New England until late October, probably don't bother going to northern Vermont.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
Unless you are ready to see indigo and rust colors, which I just bring up because, again, when we were talking about our wedding, that was our concern, but we really love that vibe as well.
Yeah, like, but it's definitely past peak. It is like most everything's dead, but it's like very orangey or brown, and then the sky is getting ready to snow, so it's like kind of indigo-y blue.
Cold, but it's I think it's a beautiful time.
Yeah, but it's definitely not what you're thinking of when you think fall foliage.
Right, when you think of those oversaturated photos of fall foliage, they're capturing probably whatever would be peak. So that could be September.
I was going to say, typically it's, I think, probably going to be mid to late September, probably getting closer to late September to very early October. But like we said, technically the year we got married, October 7th was past peak.
Yes. So that, yeah, and we were in the mountains. So
Yeah.
it's just important to remember the basic rule is the further north, the earlier it peaks.
Yep.
It's definitely, if it's high mountain range, it peaks first.
Yep.
Lower valleys will peak later.
Yep.
If you're going to be late visiting, go south.
Mm-hmm.
So
The one time you come to Connecticut.
that's why I was saying, like, yeah, if you're going to be late, come to Connecticut. You're going to have some really beautiful leaves later in the season just because it's further south.
Yeah.
So when should you go? You know, you can check it out. There's cool things to track. A couple websites we could put in the links, but one was New Hampshire has a foliage tracker.
Vermont does.
Yeah, Vermont does. I'm pretty sure if you look, most of the states will have something. Appalachian Mountain Club has a really cool one that's really related to hikes.
Yep.
And then there's also Visit New England. They link to the Farmer's Almanac, which is kind of like the old standard of predicting based on rain and climate.
Weather patterns. And
Right. And they'll tell you kind of like what they expect. I think this year they were saying like October 11th or something for certain
which is a little
areas.
late. I mean, like we said, I was looking at that too, and I was surprised at how late they were saying the peak was going to be. But we'll see, because we already have some changing.
Yeah.
And it's early September. So it's impossible to predict. Don't get yourself wound up about that. If you come around the beginning of October, you will have phenomenal trees, I'm sure.
Yes, definitely. And like, if another reason I like Vermont is if you take a drive and you go one place and it's kind of past, you can go somewhere else and you'll probably see something even nicer.
Right. So it's all about, like, I wouldn't get too caught up in trying to do peak. It's going to be beautiful. And there'll be plenty of other things to do. So let's talk about that. What else? What do you do when you go fall foliage hunting?
You just stare at the leaves from your car in black traffic, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what you do. They call them leaf peepers, especially in Vermont.
Listen, I have never been someone who's upset about tourism.
I've never... No, me neither. But, I mean, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, we like to travel.
That would be very hypocritical. But I also, like... we lived in Vermont, like, we drove a lot when we lived in Vermont because we worked an hour from Burlington.
Yeah.
And I never felt like, I don't know, like there was this, like,
line of cars,
like
at Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Remember, like for the buffalo? Yeah.
They make it sound like leaf peepers, like, stop traffic in places, and I just have never experienced that.
To be fair, I think that's more about, like, New Yorker city traffic coming out to the country in upstate, not even really upstate, but maybe even like southwestern Connecticut. I can see where if a lot of people are leaving to go do that.
But I just feel like a lot of Vermonters complain about leaf peepers, and I, like, when we lived there even, and I just feel like I never really noticed that.
Maybe if you live in a more rural spot and all of a sudden you get people who normally you're not getting visitors.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, I guess.
But it's also good for the economy.
Yeah, don't, like, get out and walk on people's farmland.
Right. Yeah,
like,
let's
be respectful, I guess. But
rules of the road.
Yeah.
Think about where you're parking your car.
Right. In fact, you probably just shouldn't park your car.
No, and that leads me to one of my favorite things to do is to go for a hike. And that way, you can actually park your car where it should be, at the trailhead, right?
Honestly, that's one of the best ways, I think, to get into, like, the actual leaves. Like, I mean, you could stare at them from your car, but I don't know. If you really want to go see the leaves, get in them.
And there's so many good hikes, and like pretty much all the states have options.
Yes, that is the one thing about New England is they do have really great options for beginner hikers all the way to extremely advanced hikers.
Right.
And honestly, like, they're all going to give you some pretty great reviews. Like, it's not like only the best, only the most advanced hikers are going to get these great views.
No.
Like, they really have a good mix of, like, trails for all and that have great views.
Yeah. I love the All Trails app. We've said it before, but just check
it's free.
it out.
I mean,
some classics are going to be anything in the Mount Washington area or Laconia.
Although those are most hard.
Those are hard, but there's still things like in Laconia or Franconia, not Laconia.
Franconia is, like, one of the hardest.
No, but there are trails that are not.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was like,
I just think even those, because, like, you're not going to Mount Washington in October unless you're ready for some snow.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, in the like the lower parts, there's still walks to waterfalls and things.
Oh yeah, there's tons of that. So I mean, no matter what you're doing for fall in New England, I really just think you should try to get out.
Yeah,
try to do at least a nature walk.
Well, and that's like nature walks, hiking, and then farms like.
Oh yeah.
Orchards and farms, apple picking. So apple picking does start earlier than I think some people realize. Like
Mm-hmm.
you want to go in October and a lot of the apples have already been picked through.
Yeah.
So really September is a good time for that.
Yeah.
But so many different orchards, and then cider, and like hard cider is as big as craft brewing now.
Yeah. Although there's a lot of apple cider, like just not hard apple cider, but
just
just
regular.
regular apple cider all over the state, all over the states.
The region.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of good vineyards. That's another thing that, like, if you're looking to be out in nature, but you kind of want like an activity to do that's not hiking, it's another good one. There's a lot of great vineyards.
And there's wine trails. Like
Yeah.
Connecticut has a wine trail. Vermont has different vineyards.
Vermont has a ton of craft beer.
Oh, yeah. So breweries often have cool outside stuff. So.
Yeah. Especially ones that know they have good views. Like, I always think about the Trapp Family Lodge.
Yep.
They have beautiful views and good beer. And also, they have I was looking at their thing. They have a lot of really cool things. And one thing you can do at, this is another Vermont one, but the Trapp Family Lodge is you can go sugaring. Like maple sugaring. Like, you can like take a tour and they like show you how they get the maple syrup and like all these other things.
Do they show you that in the fall? Because sugaring happens in like March.
Yeah, but I mean, it was on the website to book.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they just show you like the lines and everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's true because they're up there anyway.
Right.
But
yeah, so they're just like, all
they
these
do
little
have cool
things.
stuff. Yeah. Because like there's so many activities.
Yeah.
Mountain biking.
You may be lucky enough to fall into a like a festival too.
Oktoberfest kind of thing.
Oktoberfest, or even just like a fall fest. Like, New England loves their festivals.
Oh, well, there's fair. Like I said, the Big E.
Yeah, so right. The Big E's until October 15th. So if you're...
Is it that late?
Yeah.
What? For some reason, I thought it was earlier than that. Is it
Maybe
September
you're right.
15th?
Well, that's when it starts.
No, because it starts September 15th.
Yeah.
It
We're
might
going.
run that long. Regardless of what it is, yeah, it's awesome. So if you want to go to that, just tell us. We'll go.
Yeah, right. We'll meet you there.
We'll do a tour of the states.
No, but there's a lot of fall festivals and things like that.
Country fairs. Yeah.
Country fairs. And then obviously drives, we mentioned. Actually just planning a drive. Like, if I was doing a weekend, I would definitely get a hike in. I'd also probably plan a drive, but plan stops along the drive.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, Vermont's just easy to talk about because I know it the best. So it's like I would drive from Burlington to Stowe. And in that drive, I would do a big loop where I also, like, went to the Trapp Family Lodge and...
Cold
Hollow cider. Yeah, exactly. The Ben and Jerry factory, Stowe. Like, I would just, like...
There's so many... Yeah, that's
I would do all these things in this loop.
Like,
and in fact, the person who I helped is probably listening to this being like, this is the exact trip they helped me plan. Yes, because that is what I would do. And that's how I'd send my family.
Well, and you could do things like going out of Boston. You could get onto the Kancamagus Highway eventually. You can go to North Conway. You can go to all these like similar little towns.
Right. I would definitely plan a drive. And then I would plan a hike of some sort, getting out in nature some way. And then I'd probably try to experience like the local flair. It's going to be easier to do if you're in Vermont or Massachusetts than it will be in New Hampshire and Maine. But it's not like it doesn't exist in those other places. It's just easier to find in Vermont and Massachusetts.
Another activity, before I forget, I would definitely check out a ski resort.
Oh, yeah, you can take the gondolas.
Well, at Stowe, they have a gondola. Some places have chairlifts running, like Loon Mountain in New Hampshire. Actually, a lot of the New Hampshire ski resorts, you could take chairlifts up and hike down, or just go right back down on a lift. And you get awesome views, and it's something that's super easy. And especially if if hiking is too much for you, it's such an awesome way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that would be a thing I literally would replace. Like, if hiking is really kind of out of the question, definitely do a chairlift because it gives you a similar feel. At least you're in the nature for a little bit.
And another one are steam trains. The Essex train in Connecticut is one. I'm pretty sure there's one in New Hampshire as well. And then there's also one in Burlington that it's like an old retired train line. I think I might call it the Vermonter. But they have events sometimes, and that kind of was newer. I remember a few years ago they started running like dinners and things, and
so that'd be another thing to check out. Yeah, I forgot about that. That is a thing that's kind of a newer... I mean, we're saying newer, and someone's going to, like, email us and be like, I did that 25 years ago.
We've done that for 50 years.
Yeah, so newer to us, I guess. We're just realizing it.
But I think that kind of sums up a lot of the good activities.
Yeah, you were going to have a whole segment about food.
That's what I was going to say. All right, listen. All I got to say is one thing about pumpkin spice real fast.
Okay.
And it's that pumpkin spice. Listen, I think pumpkin spice was like originated in New England because my mom had a container that was like 60 years old that had hand drawn. It said pumpkin spice. And this is before I remember it being in every product and coffee. Do you know what I'm saying, though?
Yeah.
Like when you were a kid.
You've told me this story.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying like that was very New England to me. It was like pumpkin spice was used to make pumpkin pies at this time of year. And now it's in everything.
Yes,
But-
it is in everything.
But definitely get your, pumpkin spice on with it, whatever, that kind of stuff. But I got to say like cider donuts, big one.
Yeah. Those
So,
cider
like-
donuts yesterday were obscenely good.
Yes.
They were
And-
like eating an apple pie, but it was a
Go-
donut.
Right. And you want to go to like an apple orchard or a
Yeah.
farm and get fresh ones
And your cider.
and get cider. So
Yeah,
that's
you should be
definitely
appled out.
quintessential fall.
Yeah.
I would say craft beer.
Yes, well, of
Definitely
course.
a big one.
If you're in, I guess they probably do this in more places than just Vermont, but like maple creamies.
Maple creamies for sure. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like your like summertime too. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah, of
definitely
course.
fall if you're up there. Maple creamies for
Anytime
sure.
you're up there, actually.
Pretty much anytime you're in Vermont, especially maple
maple.
syrup.
Mhm.
But super fall. What else is a fall food?
I don't know. You were the one that was like, I can do a whole
Listen, I got
episode.
excited. I think, dude, you know what else reminds me of the fall though? Is fair foods.
Yeah, I knew that's where you're going to
Apple
go with
crisp,
this.
like
Yeah.
fried dough, that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
of course.
Super fair.
Yeah, well, that's if you go to the Big E, that's where you can get your
all of
fill.
that.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of places, I
like-
feel like also kind of sell similar things it's so fall.
That's what I mean. It's fall
Yeah.
and it's like harvest time.
Right,
So you get a lot
right.
of those kind of like, I
Yeah,
don't know,
the
fruit
pies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was not planned. We're off script at this point. I just put mine down.
I'm just hungry now. So.
Yeah, right. Now we just have to go eat dinner. No, but I think we did a pretty good job at like
A rundown?
running it down. There are a million questions that could be asked and answered here, but I think that generally speaking, the way you go about this is just first of all deciding if you can go kind of in that 2 or 3 week window because it is a short window.
Yep.
Also knowing that things are going to be priced high, in terms of like the places.
Yeah, peak season. So like
Yeah.
especially if you're looking for any B&B type of stay.
You need to do that early.
Way
like
early.
6 months, a year early.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially for popular ones.
Right. So this is like a thing you maybe should be thinking about for next year, not necessarily this year. And then, so getting the time off, making sure you're good there, buying your plane tickets, and then kind of deciding which vibe goes with you best. We'll let you know what people tell us.
Our 3 words.
Are the 3 words. And we'll put them somewhere. We'll put them on the website somewhere.
We should put them on the website.
Yeah.
And definitely we'll include them in the newsletter. So if you
Yeah,
haven't joined our newsletter yet, and you'd
What are
like
you
to be a
waiting
part
for?
of it, yeah, what are you waiting for? Get on it. But definitely, you could join.
We're like due for another giveaway too.
I think so. Yeah, we got
Yeah.
to think about a giveaway.
Yeah.
But thanks to everyone who's been listening. We hope you
Yeah.
enjoyed the summer kind of season. And we're back at it.
But
with
we're
our-
so excited to be back on this type of podcast, the one that we
For
love.
sure.
So we're happy to have you back, and we hope you gave you a lot to think about in terms of planning your New England fall foliage.
Yeah, and if you want help
trip.
with our itineraries or anything, just reach
Reach
out
out.
to us.
Yeah.
We'll help you out.
Yeah. See you next time.
See ya.
Did you know that every time you book a Disney or Universal vacation, you're paying for a service that you may not even be using?
Really?
That's right. Travel agent costs are added to your Disney or Universal vacation, whether you use one or not.
So you're telling me that I'm paying for something even though I'm not getting the help?
You got it. So next time you want to book a theme park vacation, make your money work for you. By booking with Magic Pass Travel, you'll get our expertise and years of experience without paying any extra and while supporting a small business.
Check out our show notes to find our contact information.
Can't wait to help you plan your next adventure.